The archer had trained for years, but the moment the crowd leaned in, his hands betrayed him. The target didn't move, his technique didn't vanish, and yet the harder he tried to hit the center, the farther the arrow drifted. Why does effort so often ruin the very thing we want most? Love, focus, leadership, peace. Ancient China had an answer so strange it sounds irresponsible at first. Stop forcing. But first, let me tell you why this matters more today than ever. Imagine a frontier gate at the edge of the known world. Dust in the air, ox carts creaking, soldiers watching the road, and an old man tired of politics, tired of ambition, tired of a civilization so obsessed with control that it had forgotten how to live. That old man, according to legend, was Lao Tzu, though even his name means something like old master, as if history itself wasn't sure whether he was one person, many voices, or a myth designed to carry ancient wisdom across centuries. He was said to have served as a keeper of records during the Zhou dynasty, an era of ritual, hierarchy, and growing disorder. Kingdoms struggled. Elites schemed, society tightened its grip, and when societies tighten their grip, people do too. They try to master every outcome. They confuse control with strength, so Lao Tzu left. At the western border, a guard recognized him and begged him to write down his teaching before disappearing into the wilderness. What he wrote next changed everything. It became the Tao Te Ching, one of the foundational texts of Taoism and one of the most unsettling works in all of philosophy. Because Lao Tzu did not offer a system for conquering life, he offered something far more difficult, a way of moving with reality instead of against it. And this is where the tension begins. We live in a world built on friction. Hustle culture tells you to optimize your mornings, weaponize your schedule, dominate your goals. Even self-improvement can become another form of violence against yourself. Work harder, think harder, push harder. But Lao Tzu looked at that whole mentality and saw a trap. Not because effort is always bad, but because effort at the wrong point becomes interference. The ego steps in, the mind clenches, and suddenly the natural intelligence you had before the pressure arrived is gone. This is the doorway into Wu Wei, usually translated as non-action, but that translation is misleading. Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It means not forcing, not straining against the grain of reality. It means action so aligned that it feels effortless, like water finding its level, like a great musician disappearing into the song. And here's where most people get it wrong. They hear effortless action and imagine passivity, laziness, withdrawal, a spiritual excuse for underachievement. But that is not what Lao Tzu meant, not even close. What he meant is far more radical and far more dangerous to the modern ego. Lao Tzu writes, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." That line sounds beautiful on a wall poster, but taken seriously, it is almost an attack on modern identity, because so much of your sense of worth is tied to strain. If it feels hard, you assume it must be meaningful. If you're exhausted, you assume you must be progressing. But what if much of your exhaustion is not the cost of reality, but the cost of resistance? Nature does not hurry. Trees do not anxiously pull themselves taller. Rivers do not attend seminars on flow. The seasons don't panic. And yet winter becomes spring without ever needing motivation. You might say, that's fine for rivers and trees, I have deadlines. True, but Lao Tzu's point is not that human beings should become inactive. It's that the deepest effectiveness comes from alignment, not internal warfare. Think about the moments you performed best in life. Not the moments you were most tense, the moments you were most absorbed. The conversation where the right words arrived before you searched for them. The athletic performance where your body knew what to do, the creative streak where hours vanished. In modern psychology, we call this flow. In Taoism, it points toward Wu Wei. And here's the surprising part. Modern neuroscience increasingly agrees that over-control can sabotage performance. Athletes call it choking. Musicians know it. Public speakers know it. The conscious mind barges in and interrupts intelligence that works better when trusted. So Wu Wei is not mystical laziness, it is skilled non-interference. And here's where most people get uncomfortable. A lot of what passes for discipline is actually fear wearing a respectable mask. You're not planning because you're wise. You're planning because uncertainty terrifies you. You're not perfecting because you love excellence. You're perfecting because you can't bear judgment. That statement will bother some people. Good, it should. Because the Eastern traditions, Taoism, Buddhism, even parts of what later resonates with modern Stoicism, keep confronting the same illusion, the idea that the self can dominate life into submission. Stoic philosophy, at its best, teaches control over your responses. Taoism asks an even sharper question. What if many of your problems begin with the compulsion to control at all? Not all control is wisdom. Sometimes control is panic with better branding. Rhetorical question: how much of your daily stress comes from the work itself? And how much comes from trying to force reality to obey your timeline? This is why Lao Tzu remains explosive in the age of optimization, because he suggests that the person always pushing may be less effective than the one who has learned when not to push. But there's something even more shocking about Wu Wei. It doesn't just change how you work. It changes how you love, lead, argue, and even suffer. Lao Tzu writes, "The soft overcomes the hard, the gentle overcomes the rigid." At first, this sounds sentimental. It isn't. It's strategic. Look at water. It yields to every obstacle, yet over time it shapes canyons, topples cliffs, and carries civilizations. Water does not win by meeting force with force. It wins by outlasting, outadapting, and refusing to become brittle. Human beings become brittle when they over-identify with one posture. Always strong, always certain, always in control. That's not strength. That's fragility disguised as authority. And yes, here's the controversial statement. Many people who pride themselves on being strong-minded are actually just emotionally inflexible. They cannot bend, so they break. That should drive some debate, and it should, because our culture constantly rewards hardness. Hard opinions, hard branding, hard ambition. Yet in relationships, in leadership, in inner life, rigidity is often catastrophic. Think about arguments. The more desperate you are to win, the less likely you are to understand. The more forcefully you try to control another person, the more they resist. Parents know this. Managers know this. Lovers definitely know this. Wu Wei offers another path. Not withdrawal, not weakness. Responsive intelligence. When someone provokes you, not every impulse deserves action. When your career hits resistance, not every wall should be smashed through. Sometimes the wiser move is to angle, wait, redirect. This is where it gets interesting. Non-forcing often produces better results than aggression precisely because it stays in contact with reality. This has practical power if you're overwhelmed. Wu Wei asks, where are you leaking energy through unnecessary friction? Maybe the task isn't exhausting. You're exhausting yourself by replaying it in your head, resenting it, dramatizing it, trying to guarantee the outcome before beginning. If you're anxious in conversation, Wu Wei asks, what happens if you stop trying to perform and just listen? If you're leading others, Wu Wei asks, can you create conditions where things happen naturally instead of micromanaging every detail? That's why the best leaders often feel strangely effortless. They don't impose motion on every part. They remove obstacles, set direction, and trust the process. There's a hidden link here to Stoic philosophy too. The Stoics teach inner steadiness in the face of chaos. Lao Tzu adds softness, less gripping, less egoic forcing. Together, they form a kind of balance modern Stoicism often forgets: resilience without rigidity. And if you think this is too abstract, try one simple experiment. The next time you feel urgency rising, send the text now, fix the conversation now, solve your whole life tonight, do nothing for 60 seconds, breathe, feel the compulsion without obeying it, then act from clarity instead of pressure. Small gap, massive difference. Because in that gap, force loosens its hold. And once you've tasted that, you start seeing something almost unsettling. Much of your life has been driven not by intention, but by compulsion. Lao Tzu writes, by letting it go, it all gets done. Now we arrive at the heart of the paradox. How can letting go lead to accomplishment? Doesn't success require holding on, tightening up, caring more, pushing further? Sometimes yes, but often what you call caring is attachment, and attachment distorts perception. When you are attached to one specific outcome, you stop seeing the whole field. You become narrow, reactive, blind. You no longer respond to reality, you try to bend reality around your preference. That is the beginning of unnecessary suffering. Buddhism says something similar in its own language. Clinging creates pain. Taoism shows what freedom looks like in motion. Letting go is not apathy, it is the release of the inner chokehold. A master craftsman still works carefully. A wise leader still leads. A loving person still loves deeply, but they stop strangling the process with fear. They stop demanding certainty before action. They stop trying to own what can only be participated in. This matters because your life is not a machine. It is an ecology. Relationships, creativity, healing, meaning, these do not respond well to domination. You cannot bully yourself into peace. You cannot command genuine love. You cannot force insight on a schedule. And here is the emotional peak of Wu-Wei, the realization that life may work better when you stop treating it like an enemy camp. What if the friction you feel is not always proof that you need more force? What if sometimes it is feedback that you are misaligned? This is where Eastern philosophy feels both ancient and urgently modern, because our civilization is brilliant at extraction and terrible at attunement. We know how to maximize. We rarely know how to harmonize. We are producing burned-out professionals, overparented children, exhausted creators, and anxious minds that cannot sit still for 30 seconds without reaching for stimulation. Lao Tzu's answer is not to abandon society and vanish into the mountains, though some days that sounds appealing. His answer is subtler: recover your sensitivity to the Tao, the way things move when you stop interrupting them. That means knowing when to speak and when silence has more power, when to act and when waiting is the action, when to persist and when persistence has quietly become ego. Rhetorical question: are you building your life or just wrestling it? This is also why Wu-Wei is not merely a concept. It is a practice of perception. You begin to notice where force enters your body. The jaw tightens, the breath shortens, the shoulders rise, the mind starts narrating disaster. That is the moment to soften, not because softness is morally superior, but because softness keeps you in relationship with reality. The old texts call this wisdom. Modern self-improvement often ignores it because it doesn't look impressive on camera. No one films the miracle of not overreacting. No one applauds the email you didn't send. No one gives awards for the argument you refused to escalate. And yet these invisible moments shape your destiny. That is Lao Tzu's genius. He reveals that some of the most powerful actions in human life are almost invisible from the outside. The sage does less, and less is left undone. Not because he is magical, because he is no longer wasting energy fighting the current with his bare hands. So let's return to the archer. He missed not because he lacked skill, but because he added self-conscious force to what should have been fluid. The crowd entered his mind. The desire to hit the center became more disruptive than the target itself. That is your life more often than you think. You know more than you let yourself trust. You are more capable than your panic allows. And many of your failures are not failures of effort, but failures of alignment. This week, I want to give you a challenge. For 7 days, notice one moment each day when you are forcing. Maybe it's in work. Maybe it's in a conversation. Maybe it's in your own head at 2 a.m. When you catch it, don't immediately fix the situation. First, soften your grip. Breathe once. Ask, what would this look like if it were done without strain? Then test it. Write the email more simply. Say less in the argument. Take the walk before making the decision. Stop rehearsing every possible future. Do the next necessary thing and no more. This is not passivity. It is disciplined non-interference. And if that phrase feels uncomfortable, good. Most people have been trained to believe that the only alternative to control is collapse. Lao Tzu offers a third option: cooperation with reality. There is a reason this ancient wisdom still feels alive, because the human nervous system has not changed nearly as much as our technology has. We still tighten against uncertainty, we still chase control, we still confuse tension with seriousness, and we still suffer for it. So try this for 7 days. Come back and tell me what changed. Maybe you'll discover that the conversation went better when you stopped trying to dominate it. Maybe your work improved when you stopped performing productivity and simply entered the task. Maybe your mind became quieter when you stopped treating every thought like a command. And maybe, this is the deepest possibility, you'll realize that peace was never something you had to manufacture, only something you kept interrupting. If this shifted something in your thinking, subscribe. We go deeper every week. Stop forcing the river.